Are you feeling dissatisfied by your life? Maybe you're feeling unhappy, or maybe you're feeling overwhelmed right now by all the things that are going on for you. Well, today's episode might be just the thing that you have been looking for. Today we are talking all about personal integrity and how important that is for you to have in order for you to feel your best and live your best life. So today we're diving deep into talking about integrity, and I cannot wait to share this life-changing stuff with you. So if you want to find out more, then be sure to keep watching. What's up, my friends? Welcome back to another video. My name is Jen. I am a spiritual life and business coach, and you have found my YouTube channel. This is where I create content for you each and every week, all about the art of up-leveling your life through mindset and manifestation. So if that sounds like something that you want to be a part of, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Before we dive into today's topic today, I just wanted to make a quick little announcement that things are going to be changing here a little bit on the channel. So I have been creating content for you guys twice a week for 2 years-ish, maybe a year and a half. And I have really been loving it, but I have felt the drive lately to make more longer form content, more in-depth content. And I really want to pursue that. So the way that I'm going to pursue that is by dropping my videos down to only once a week. I know actually that I create a lot of content for you, especially with my blog posts, with my daily Instagram posts, with everything. And I know that not everybody can keep up. Of course, we all live incredibly busy lives and there's a lot going on. So I'm pretty excited, even though I am dialing things back. The quality, I think, of the content that I'm bringing you is going to go up. And a lot of my videos have been getting on the longer side anyway, so I just think that this is a really natural transition for me. But of course, you are my YouTube fam, and I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this. So if you want to let me know, go ahead and either leave a comment on this video below or go ahead and send me a DM. I'm very reachable on Instagram, so you can find me over there, and the link for my Instagram, of course, is in the show notes. Okay, so with the housekeeping announcement out of the way, let's dive into today's training. And today we are talking all about personal integrity, what personal integrity is, signs that you may be out of it, and how you can get back into it. So as you know, my channel is called The Aligned Life. My blog is called The Aligned Life, and I am always searching for new ways to talk about alignment. And basically the way I define alignment is when your desires are in alignment with your beliefs, with your thoughts, with your feelings, with your words, and with your actions. And integrity lies very close to alignment. So I'm going to talk specifically today about integrity, and what I mean by integrity and what I mean by personal integrity is basically just the art of being really true to yourself, by keeping your word to yourself, by not lying to yourself, and by just, being a witness both to where you are at and also striving to push yourself to where you want to go. So as you can see, integrity and alignment, they're very, very similar things, but thinking about integrity, it is a little bit of a different light, and I really hope that you can get something out of this training today. So we are going to divide this video up today into 3 different parts. The first part is the one we're in right now. We're going to talk about personal integrity. The second part, we are going to talk about signs of not being in integrity, because I can talk about integrity all day long, but if you have no idea what that really feels like or what that really looks like in your world, then it isn't really going to serve you. And finally, at the end of the video, I'm going to give you a few ways for you to get back into your integrity, which is a really important thing to know. So again, I can talk about integrity and how amazing and important it is. But if you don't know what it looks like if you're out of integrity and you don't know how to get back into integrity, then I'm kind of not giving you the full perspective, right? So today we're going to go through all 3 components of it. And like I said, and like I've already started talking about, we're going to dive into the first one right now. So the first one is, what is personal integrity? So basically, personal integrity, as I said, is your ability to trust yourself. And I mean, trust yourself, trust in your actions, trust in your judgments, and trust in your ability to show up for yourself. So this can show up in many different ways, and I'm going to dissect this more as we go throughout the video. But really, this is keeping your word to yourself. It is about actually showing up for the promises you make to yourself. It is about being truthful to yourself. And it is about remembering what your long game is. Because we are humans, and of course, the things that we want for our life in the bigger picture, you know, they usually require some work, some time, some effort to create. So in the meantime, as we're going through our daily life, of course, from time to time, we're going to get distracted. We are going to let our energy go into something that isn't ultimately serving us. And we are going to occasionally, you know, slip up, miss the mark, etc. And to a certain degree, that is totally fine. Of course, we're not monks. We are not perfect. We are never going to be perfect. And I'm totally an advocate for living an imperfectly perfect life. For enjoying life, making time to enjoy your life, forgiving yourself for these things. But there is a big difference between the self-love that is healthy and the self-love that is indulgent. So a lot of times our brain can get in the way and start creating all kinds of excuses for why we shouldn't bother to do something. In my private courses, I talk a lot about what different voices we all have in our brain, how they are all ultimately working for our ego, trying to keep us afraid and trying to prevent us from making progress. But just so that you know that that is a factor, it is really important for you to remember that. Your brain is not always entirely on your side. It is definitely not entirely in favor of you going out there and creating your dream life. So you really need to be aware that we all have these mental traps inside of us that will get in the way of us creating the results that we want. So I know that you are interested in personal development and manifestation, and that is why you have found this channel. So it is really important for you to become aware of this in yourself, because it's only when you have the awareness that these things are happening that is when you have also the ability to notice them and change them, instead of just like letting yourself get bowled over by them and suddenly you're off target and not getting anywhere near the results that you really want. Integrity is also about authenticity. It is about being true to your values, true to what is right for you. Authenticity is something I speak about a lot, but really it is such an important thing for each and every one of us to figure out for ourselves. So when we were raised by our family, by our school environment, we were given all kinds of ideas about who we should be and what is important in this world. But as an adult, it is entirely up to you to go back and figure out whether those values are actually what you really want. And for many of us, they are not. The things that we were taught as children, the things that we were shown in the media, the things we were told at school are really not what we would choose for ourselves. So it is really important, and it's a really big piece of integrity to realize that you are a conscious creator, that you are in charge of creating your amazing life. But in order to create your amazing life, you need to figure out what is amazing for you. And that is where authenticity comes in. You can spend a lot of time creating an amazing on paper life and still feel miserable at the end of the day. I have been there and it sucks. So this is why I'm so passionate about this. So if you have yet to think about what is authentic to you in your life and in your values, that is really a good starting place, and that will go along with everything else that I'm going to talk about in this video today. The final piece of personal integrity to touch on is not requiring an outside influence. So that means not requiring somebody else's approval, not needing someone else to validate you, and definitely not, again, using somebody else's ideas for your life as your own. So we are all taught to be people pleasers to a certain extent. We are all taught during the schooling system to value our teachers' opinions and value all these other opinions above our own. So it is really something that every single adult out there needs to think about. We need to think about how we can start to take back that need for approval, for external approval, and start to learn how to give that approval to ourselves. If you cannot live your life just by approving yourself, you are always going to be out of integrity. You are going to be led down paths that do not belong to you, that do not align with what you ultimately want, and you are never going to get the feeling that you crave, because of course the sad truth of the matter is you can try your very best to make everyone in your world happy, and you are still not going to be able to do that. So your job is not to make everyone in your world happy. Your job is to make you happy. You are the only one you need to worry about. And it is only when you can remove that need for validation and approval that you can actually start to do that. So that is another key component in integrity. So before I move along, I just wanted to take a moment and talk about the importance of integrity when it comes to spirituality. So like I said, I'm always talking about alignment, and especially alignment and its importance in relation to manifestation. Basically, when you are in alignment with the things that you want, when you can go in and reprogram your mind and change your limiting beliefs, that is when the things that you want to have in your world come to you. That is when you become magnetic. So a similar thing happens with integrity. When you are integrated, so to speak, with your desires, when your desires align with your core values, when everything is working towards the same goal, that is one of the best ways that you can get out of your own way, remove all the drama, remove all the noise, and just create the things that you want. At the end of the day, it's when our subconscious mind wants one thing and we want another, that is when we trip ourselves up the most. So again, it's really important, no matter where you are at in your life, no matter what goals you are going after, it's really important to think about both alignment and integrity on your way to achieving that. You could spend, again, a lot of time chasing down a goal, thinking that it's your own, and get there and at the end feel extremely let down. If that is happening to you, that is definitely a sign that you are not in integrity, that that goal never really aligned with who you want to be or what you really want to have. Integrity is really just a sign of us being in our true power, and it is not something you have to sit around and wait to have happen to you. It is not something that you are born into or just don't have. It is something you can create, just like happiness, just like confidence. These are things that we can work on and build in our world. So before we dive into how you're going to do that, first I want to stop and talk a little bit about the signs of not being in alignment. So like I said, it's one thing for me to sit here and talk about integrity and the importance of personal integrity, but unless you know how to recognize when you are not in integrity, like, it doesn't really matter what I'm telling you. I really want these trainings to go a little bit deeper and to really give you something to chew on and reflect on and to take with you and to use in your world. And so one of the best ways to know when you're not in integrity is to look for one of these signs. So basically, the first number one sign of not being in integrity is a lack of joy or just a feeling of unhappiness in your life. Of course, unhappiness can come from, an immediate circumstance like losing a job or something like that. But a lot of times it comes from us just repeatedly not checking in with ourselves, from chasing after the wrong things in our life, from feeling exhausted because we are working so hard to get somewhere and it feels like we never get there. The reason why you might not be getting there is maybe because the things you are going for are not actually in your personal integrity. Again, we have been taught to be people pleasers. We have been taught to think about life in a certain way, to go for the quote unquote American dream way of living. We are taught to value certain things in this world that may not actually bring you happiness. Even if you are told over and over again on TV, in magazines, wherever, that, living this sort of life is going to make you happy, it might come as a real shock to find out that that life that you have worked so hard to create isn't actually what you wanted. So feeling this unhappiness, Feeling a lack of joy, definitely a sign of not being in integrity. Also feeling dissatisfied, feeling like, you know, things are okay and you really thought things would have clicked into place somehow, and you've been spending so much time, again, working, striving for these things, and you never quite get where you want to go. That is definitely a sign that you are not in integrity and that you are perhaps working towards the wrong goals for yourself. So again, we're going to talk about how to fix up all this stuff in the next section, but right now I just want to really nail these points for you. The next sign that you might not be in integrity is feeling really overwhelmed by failure. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about failure for a second, and failure is just a fact of life. We usually do not have a great relationship with failure because, again, in the school system, failing was such a big deal. If you failed a test, if you failed a grade, I don't even think, can you even fail a grade anymore? I'm not sure. That was a big deal. That meant something terrible about you, right? So in school, we're kind of taught that we need to do something and we need to do it well. And it doesn't really matter how much effort we put in or if we tried our best. None of that stuff really matters. But in the real world, it is actually completely different. And in the real world, trying something, giving something your all and failing can be one of the most valuable lessons you will ever have. And in the real world, trying hard to do something actually gives us more information about how to do something again. So it is never as black and white as we were taught back in school. And actually, failure is something that we all need to become comfortable with, especially if you are invested in going beyond where you are right now, trying something new, manifesting a bigger life, creating more money, creating a better relationship, whatever. You are going to have to get comfortable with this idea of failure. The thing is, again, if you are not in personal integrity, if you are living your life to make somebody else happy, if you are pursuing the dreams that your parents told you were right for you, if you are doing the thing that you saw someone do on TV and thought, oh, that's going to make me happy, and it isn't making you happy, and you're trying really hard and you're failing, you are going to take that failure so much more personally. The thing is, if you are really in alignment with your goals, if you are in integrity with your values and you try something and you fail, it is so much easier to look at that experience as a learning lesson. It is so much easier to understand what went wrong, to take that knowledge and to go back and try again. It only becomes debilitating. Failure feels debilitating when you are trying so hard to do something and it isn't in alignment with what you want. So it's like failure stacked on top of failure, failing at something that you don't even want to do in the first place. Of course, that's why it feels so terrible. So if there's something that's just happened in your world and it is hitting you really hard and you're not really sure why, this might be why. It might be because you are not in your personal integrity about this goal, about this achievement. So really think on that and really be honest with yourself about that. Finally, the last sign of not being in integrity, it sort of reflects on what I was just speaking on, but this would be the opposite. This would be you going out there and achieving a goal and not feeling great about it, feeling let down, feeling like, oh, I thought something would shift, feeling like, you know, you kind of got ripped off, or like there was a bait and switch somewhere along the way. Again, I'm speaking about all of this stuff because these things have happened to me. I have at various points in my life thought that doing certain things was going to make me feel better. And newsflash, it did not. Feeling better is never about the thing. It's never about that goal. It's about a whole process. It's about, again, alignment, integrity. If you are really okay with yourself, if you are really going for something that you are passionate about, then you're going to feel this joy no matter what happens, good or bad. But if you are not in alignment with where you're going and where your energy is going and how you are spending your precious life here on earth, then of course it is not going to feel good. So if you hit a goal, hit a milestone, and you are disappointed or wondering what's wrong or wondering what's missing, don't keep going down that road without stopping for a moment and reflecting, okay? It's really important to think about this integrity in all areas of your life. As the very annoying phrase goes, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So integrity really applies to your relationships, to your friendships, your romantic relationships, your work, everything. So really think on that. Okay, so we are to the ending part of this video, but I've got a few juicy pointers to help you. So if you've been listening along this far and you understand the importance of integrity and you see maybe some of these symptoms in yourself, something is resonating and you're thinking, oh no, okay, I need to get back into integrity. The next question, of course, becomes, how do I get back into personal integrity? So I'm gonna give you 7 pointers to get you started, to get the cookies going, and to get you back into sitting in your full power and being the true badass that you are born to be. Number 1, the first habit for integrity is telling the truth to yourself. So be honest. How often during your week do you regularly lie to yourself? When do you pretend that you are okay with something that you're not really okay with? When do you pretend to like something that you don't really like? When do you let your boundaries get crossed? When do you say you're going to do something and then not actually do it? These are all the many, many ways that we start to lie to ourselves. And I know that in the privacy of your own brain, none of these things seem like a big deal. It doesn't seem like a big deal if you are trying to convince yourself that you're really into something. It doesn't really seem like a big deal if you tell yourself you're going to do something and you don't. But I'm gonna tell you right now, your brain sees it all, sees the real you. And I know that we can pretend that we're good at lying to ourselves. I know that we can pretend to compartmentalize, but your brain is highly aware of everything that is going on. And if you are making it a habit of saying that you want one thing and not doing anything about it, or knowing that you don't like something, but you tell people that you do, or something like this, you are slowly eroding your sense of self-trust over time. It is really important for us to have a good relationship with ourselves. It is really important for us to have a good relationship with ourselves. So I want you to think now about somebody that you may have met recently or in the past who is always flaking out, who you make a plan with and always cancels, who always forgets, who always has an excuse. You probably stop asking that person to do something. Your expectations for this person have now been tanked, and it is really hard to get that back. Well, we can be that person to ourselves if we are constantly making promises and not keeping them. If we are constantly telling ourselves something that isn't really true, we see this. It is important. You think that you are compartmentalizing, but you are not. So step number 1 to get back into your integrity is to start being honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself. Stop running from yourself. Be really truthful about how you feel, where you're at, what you're doing, what you intend to do. All of these things are so important, and I can probably do a whole video just on this topic, but I think you get the point for now. The important part to know is that if you cannot tell the truth to yourself, you are never going to be in integrity. So really think about how much you are willing to sacrifice for your own ongoing happiness. Is this really going to be worth it or not? So that's a really important question to ask. And that is why telling the truth is the first step. Step number 2 for you to get back into your personal integrity. This is getting clear about your core values. And we all have a set of core values of things that we prize and things that we hold dear to our hearts that no one else really has. So of course we all value similar things, but when it comes down to it, if you had to make a list of the 4 qualities or 4 things in this world that really are important to you, that's sort of like your DNA. That is sort of like a little blueprint that is exclusive to you. But this is something that they don't teach you in school. This is not something that someone ever stops you in your life and tells you, hey, you really need to get clear about your core values. But when you have this code, when you have this core values and you know what they are, it really helps to bring down the noise, bring down the chaos, bring down the confusion. If you know what your values are and say there's a big decision that you need to make, you really can go back to your values, to looking at what's important to you, and that will really help to guide you in the right decision for you. And this is really just a level of self-knowledge and really listening to ourselves, understanding ourselves, and also advocating for ourselves in the future. So if you've never taken a moment to sit back and really think about the things that are most important to you, it is time for you to do that. So take a journal, grab a pen, think on it, and I would suggest coming up with 4 words, 4 ideas, 4 beliefs that can really reflect your values. So they could be things like freedom or self-expression, anything like that, anything that comes to you. Just write them down and reflect on them. And once you start to go through your life knowing what these things are, it's going to throw so much more things into clarity for you. So really make sure that you go and practice this. Okay, tip number 3 for you today is keeping promises to yourself. So I already sort of mentioned this in the first tip, but keeping promises to yourself is a totally different thing. So I want you now to think of the last time you decided you were going to get healthy and lose weight. And maybe it was New Year's and you had this whole big plan for yourself. The rest of the year, I'm going to be vegan. The rest of the year, I'm going to go running 4 days a week. The rest of the year, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then by the second week of February, you are back into doing the same things you have always done. Does that sound familiar? Maybe you are the kind of person who is always trying a new diet and then the diet fails and then you get yourself amped up to do it again. You're going to start on Monday and do it, and then that day comes and then something happens and you don't start it. Maybe it's the workout routine that you're missing. Maybe every day you're like, I'm gonna go running tomorrow. And every day you think about going running, and every day you hit the snooze button on your alarm. Does any of this sound familiar? Again, what you're really doing here is slowly eroding your sense of self-trust over time. When you say that you really want to do something and you don't show up for yourself, you are violating the most important trust that you need to have, which is the trust in yourself. So I know that nobody is coming around to check on your work. Nobody knows the promises you're making to yourself, but you need to start remembering how important this is. And again, I find this really helpful to think about your relationship with yourself as you would a relationship with someone else. So again, if you were constantly trying to meet somebody for a coffee and they were constantly canceling on you, eventually you just would not even think of this person as somebody who is capable of going for coffee. The same thing happens with you. If you say you're gonna go running every day and you don't go running, your brain is eventually going to think that everything that you say doesn't really matter. And that is definitely not where we want to be. That is not a power position. It is not an integrity, and staying there is not going to make you happier. Okay, the 4th tip I have for you today to stay in personal integrity is to really look at your habits and consider creating new habits that are in integrity with who you want to be and the life you want to have. So habits might not sound that sexy, it sounds kind of boring, but habits are what we run on. And the thing is, right now, you probably have a lot of habits that are creating the results that you are living right now, which means your habits are not aligning with the dreams and desires of the life that you really want to have. So because this is my manifestation channel and I'm talking about changing our life all the time on here, I want you now to start thinking about your habits and how much integrity they have towards being who you want to be. Part of this is simply acknowledging what is going on. Again, we are so good at lying to ourselves. We are so good at making excuses. We are so good at telling ourselves, it really doesn't matter if I try today. I can go home and watch Netflix for 3 hours and it'll be fine. The better you are at lying to yourself, the harder it's going to be to acknowledge exactly what your habits look like. But I really challenge you for the next week to think on your habits, to notice your habits, and to really become aware of whether or not the things that you do day in and day out are serving you. Are these things that are going to help you get closer to the life you want to have, or are they taking you farther away from that? Again, this is all about being honest about what you actually do, not about the things that you think that you do, that you tell yourself that you do, but the things that you actually do. And if your habits are not aligning you with where you want to go and the person you want to be, then it is time to do a little work, to think on new habits, to drop the old habits, and to really step out of that comfort zone of where you are right now and start pushing yourself into the zone where you want to be. Okay, the fifth tip I have for you today, this one is all about building in a punishment. That does not sound like fun, I know. But we have to remember that we are going to try to get out of things. Again, we are going to tell ourselves that watching Netflix is easier, that eating the cake is easier than making the salad, that doing all of the things that are not in alignment with what we want, we're going to tell ourselves at some point that this is what we should do. So you have a whole part of your brain that's whole job is to try to keep you the same. It is just really important to realize that. So one of the ways that you can start to get beyond this when this voice inevitably shows up, this is to build in a punishment. So build in a consequence, something that will happen to you if you do not do the thing that you promised yourself. So it doesn't have to be like a painful punishment. This can be something that you just decide to fine yourself by having to donate to a charity or something when you don't show up for yourself, when you don't do 5 workouts a week or whatever your goal is. The thing is, we know we have that voice that is going to try to convince us not to bother, to convince us to stay home. So we need to be proactive and figure out what to do when that voice strikes. So if you can think of a consequence and really get strict with yourself on it, that is one way for you to get beyond this. So I want you to think about now, like if you have a child or if you were in charge of a child at some point in your life and that child was doing something you didn't want them to do and you wanted them to change their behavior, you would probably tell them what the behavior was and you would probably think of a consequence. So in a way, we are learning how to parent ourselves. We are putting our own consequences in so that we can create the desired result. Otherwise, your little monkey brain is going to take over and make you do the same things you always do, and that is exactly how you end up in the same place you've always been. So it is super crucial for you to think of a way to get yourself out of that. Okay, tip number 6 for you today is to work on your sense of self-trust. And what I really mean by that is to work on raising your confidence by trying new things, by pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, by letting yourself figure things out. So many times we are not in integrity because of fear, and fear can keep you small forever. So we need to realize that the fear voice in our brain is not actually a representation of what we are personally capable of. We are going to experience fear anytime we have something new come into our world. So it is really important for us to get cozy with fear and to realize that this is something that we can just experience. It's a feeling that will come, but it does not have to rule over us, and we still get to decide what we want, what outcomes we want, and what we are going to do with our life. Again, the more you practice this, the easier it will get, but I really recommend working on this. Again, it's like developing a muscle. It's like going to a mental gym. The more that you can practice doing something new for yourself, the easier it is going to get. You are going to show your brain that you went out there and did something. Even though you were feeling scared, even though you didn't exactly know how to do something, it was brand new and you learned how to figure it out. And over time, the more times that you let yourself just figure it out, the more you'll be able to trust yourself. And trust is an amazing, essential part of integrity. So really think about how you can start challenging yourself and working on that self-trust muscle. Okay, my 7th and final tip for you today is to forgive yourself. And this isn't really a tip in itself, but I really wanted to make sure that I make this clear as we go forward. So I talked about punishing and creating consequences for yourself, and I'm talking a lot about, being honest with yourself. But for many of us, we don't have an honest place that it also isn't mean and terrible and dragging you down more, right? We all have that inner mean guy or inner mean girl that can really berate us for being wrong or making a mistake or being a failure or whatever it is. So I want you to realize that you can acknowledge the mistakes, the so-called failures, all of those things without going to that extra place of berating yourself, of being mean. Those voices might come up to you, but you do not have to stay there. You do not have to berate yourself every time you make a mistake. And in fact, the more you can learn how to let it go, the better it's going to be. So strengthen your forgiveness muscle. Realize that this is not about being perfect. It is never going to be perfection. So you need to learn how to forgive yourself for being a work in progress, for being brave enough to go out there and figure things out as you go, for learning as you go. Because the only alternative to any of this stuff is to try to stay the same and to try to just, be your small little self and not express your life fully forever. The problem with that is eventually life is going to kick you out of your comfort zone eventually. So you might as well learn how to do it on your terms. You might as well go out there and start creating the life that you want. If life's going to get uncomfortable anyway, you might as well make it on your own terms. At least that is what I passionately believe. So forgive yourself. Forgive your imperfect life. Understand that no one has this perfectly down. Perfection doesn't exist. I know, not even in Beyonce. So really forgive yourself and do not turn this whole system into a punishment. If you're punishing yourself from a real horrible place, instead of from a motivational place, it is just not going to feel good, and you're going to be pulling your energy down even more, and that is not what we want. So that's it. You did it. Thank you so much for watching today's training. I really hope this video today inspires you to think a little bit differently about personal integrity. This is not a buzzword that I see a lot of people talking about, but like I've shown you in this video, it is so crucial to so many aspects of our life. If you can challenge yourself to create just a little bit more personal integrity in your world, you are going to feel more confident, more happy, and more like the future badass self that I know you really are. So thank you so much for sticking with me through this training. Thanks so much for watching this channel. If you liked this video, please do me a favor, give it a like. If you want to watch more, you can click the latest right here. Other than that, I'll see you in next week's video. So until then, I'm wishing you so much love, so much joy, so much integrity. And as always, just remember, get ready for the miracle. See you guys.